Thank you for accepting our invitation today to recognize the National Day of Prayer with WARM as we give thanks to God in this celebration of answered prayers. We live in a busy and anxious world. The last year has caused a lot of people to feel panic, stress, and uncertainty for what the future holds, but it has also ignited prayer amongst those around us. The pandemic caused more people to pray. Prayer lifted individuals, schools, businesses, civic organizations, and local government all working together to take care of one another. WARM has had the privilege to be the beneficiary of prayers as our community gave its support to us in many ways so that we could continue to serve in a new and a safe way to those most in need. We were also blessed to be a part of God's plan in assisting Him in answering other people's prayers during this time as well. We thank you for recognizing the importance of prayer in all that we do, and we encourage you to watch the following to see for yourselves what effect you've had on the lives of so many in our community. May prayer continue to be important in your life each and every day, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Scott. My name is Matt Lofi, and I am proud to have been asked to guide you through this special virtual event. We wish we were seeing you in person for our annual prayer breakfast and a morning of celebration for what National Day of Prayer means to us all. But like many events for the past year, we too felt that it was safer to meet this way. The Westerville Area Resource Ministry has been a staple for the Westerville community for many years. Through community engagement, partnership, and stewardship, God has blessed WARM with a plan that has ultimately enabled it to meet one of the world's greatest challenges right here at home.
I actually knew WARM before it was WARM. When it started out as Paul's Pantry over at St. Paul's, it was a small group that served the hungry and got clothing for them and everything. I loved it then. When they first started out, I was able to take my kids with me, and we would deliver Christmas to some families who were less fortunate than ours, and it was kind of a way to get them to know that you really have it good, and there's people who just don't have what you have, and we take toys and food to these people, and they get it. When your kids get it, it's really kind of a neat transformation in your family. I think that we have a responsibility as all of us in Westerville, if we see someone in that situation, say, have you thought of WARM? Have you gone to WARM? WARM's there for you. Sometimes you don't want to ask someone if they've tried WARM because you don't want them to realize you know they're in need unless they're willing to bring that to you first. So if they tell you that they're in need and you say, have you tried WARM? And you might not see them for a while. So that happened to me once, that I saw someone a few months later and they came up to me and said, thank you. They were there, they were able to fulfill our needs. Now we're self-sufficient again, and now we're going to be back to donating to WARM to help others. They're going to pay it forward, and I find that people in Westerville are like that. They like to pay it forward. If they were given something, they like to give back. So that's a great testament to WARM.
I think what makes WARM so special is that WARM has really embraced the spirit, soul, and body aspect. They're taking care of the body, they are providing food, but there's people here on staff to help the clients recognize their own potential. I love the coaching and the consulting and the counseling that takes place, where someone comes in for food, but someone else recognizes potential and then helps them find ways to get jobs, get training for jobs, how to advocate for themselves when they have a need that's not food related. And then finally, one of my personal favorites, being a pastor, is that we do provide pastoral coaching and care.
And so we adopted the Mr. Rogers idea of find the helper. How can we leverage our relationships with one another to provide support and relief to our friends and neighbors?
And I think the other thing that I really appreciated kind of the opportunity to do during this time was to get out of our silos a little bit. It's so easy to, you're focused on your own mission and the work you do, but in this environment, just kind of breaking those down, reaching out and seeing, okay, what really is most needed? Because the need was so great. What can we do to meet that need together?
So many of our communities had to do so much more because there wasn't the resource that we have here in Westerville.
I believe we have about a third of our students on free and reduced lunch, which that number probably surprises a lot of people. And I think the pandemic allowed us and forced us, hopefully, to admit that those needs exist in our community and that it's going to take all of us to address them.
And how great is it that WARM is able to help them and give them some food and help them in other ways that they need. That's what I love about WARM. They're willing and able and right there to help whatever way they can.
Westerville is very fortunate to have WARM in our community. There are very few suburban communities that have a food pantry and a resource center that's even remotely comparable to what WARM provides here in Westerville.
I've heard a lot of people say it's easy when you're in certain areas within Westerville to live in a little bubble and not see the need that exists in the community. And WARM, you know, they see it every day.
WARM will just step right in and wrap their arms around those people and say, here we are, we can help you, we can refer you to other things that you need as well if we can't fulfill your needs.
And WARM's mission is really to try to cover as many bases as humanly possible to support neighbors in directing their lives so that they can live prosperously in satisfaction and in comfort to whatever extent we're able to deliver. It's a holistic approach, ministering not just to the belly but to the soul.
And to know that this group is really helping people in need. It's not just a group that says they're helping, you can see that they actually are helping. If WARM wasn't here, we'd be hurting as a community. If they weren't there, who'd be there to feed the hungry? Who'd be there? I mean, there are other places, but they're not here in Westerville. And with the sheer number of people that are needing more help nowadays, we'd be really hurting a lot. We'd be hurting a lot.
With your support during the past year, WARM has been able to provide service to those who need it the most. Oftentimes, that need came quite unexpectedly. Fortunately, area organizations and neighbors reacted somewhat unexpectedly too, with a record-breaking food drive and monetary support that came from donors both large and small.
It's a really interesting story how I was introduced to WARM. We had just moved to Westerville from Pittsburgh. We didn't know anyone, and my oldest child, she came home from school and she was so upset because they were talking about a program that was collecting food for the hungry for a meal that they were going to be doing for Christmas, and there wasn't enough food. And she said, Mom, I want to throw a Christmas party and invite all the neighborhood kids to come and have them all bring canned goods, and we're going to donate it to WARM. We had 60 kids from our neighborhood, from their classrooms, come in. They all provided food, and we donated it to WARM.
We were we were right in the middle of preparing for our largest event of the year, our gala event, which was an artful affair. It was to take place at the end of April when everything shut down. At that point, we really looked around at the community, talked with others who work closely with our students, Dr. Kellogg, talked with Rick Bannister, Scott Marrier, others in the community about what they were working on and the needs they were seeing. And Superintendent Kellogg did say that WARM and Neighborhood Bridges were two of the organizations that were really meeting the critical needs of our students at that time. We created a fundraising campaign called The Big Lift and did online fundraising for WARM and Neighborhood Bridges, and were able to raise about $20,000 for those two organizations.
We have done fundraisers for WARM with other photo shoots and other leagues. But here in Westerville, WYBSL would collect canned food items. When a child would come up with their canned food, we'd stamp their form, and they would get some type of a free 8x10 picture product. And my girls are like, well, what can we do? And I'm like, we have to do something specifically for WARM.
One of the ways that I really became familiar with WARM was through the initial connection through my church, which is the Church of the Messiah up in the north end of Westerville. And our pastor was on the board here before I was, so he was one of the people that made me feel like potentially I could contribute. But after being here for almost a year, it just became even more obvious to me of the opportunities our church had to expand the relationship that we had with WARM, and I knew the love of our congregation would want to do that. So most recently, in working with the pastor and working with the leadership board, our church has made a $100,000 commitment that will be here to support things over the next 12 months.
The first thing that I donated was like 12 bags of food.
But when you're standing next to the car of a neighbor who needs more than food, you recognize that their anxieties, their insecurities are not going to be met with just a full belly or knowing that their children have a lunch or a dinner. They're going to need a lot more help and support. Some of that comes through a growing relationship of trust between the client services and our neighbors.
I made paper toys for all the kids in my neighborhood and people out of my neighborhood and my family and stuff. I was just sitting on the couch watching TV, the thing that I was watching, nothing related to it. Then I standed up, walked to the kitchen, started making invitations. And nobody knew I was doing it. I just said I was going outside.
Yeah, we suddenly got questions from our neighbors trying to find out when this auction was happening. We had no idea.
I gave it to one, and I think they used the money to get food for people that need it.
I think watching the community come together to support one another and asking the questions, what can I do? And when opportunities were provided to serve in different ways, not everyone could give money, but when there was an opportunity to give time, people really did show up for those opportunities.
Just selling something simple. Well, giving away coffee cakes and brownies because we didn't ask for a price, we just asked for people to donate what they could. Our goal was $1,000. We went over $8,000. It was just unbelievable. The people I never knew before that were so excited to give to WARM and know that 100% of what they were giving was going to that organization.
I have just been thrilled with the response. They are ready to jump in, and they do want to be here even more than we've been in the past, and again, really demonstrate how we love our neighbors in Westerville.
If you have more than you need, then you can help people that don't have enough that they need.
Out of the mouths of babes, right? And as we appreciate your monetary gifts and food donations, it takes more than that to facilitate the work of God. It takes volunteers, people who donate their time and energy to serve their neighbors in unfortunate circumstances, the people who sort the cans and pack the boxes, the ones who train and minister to the hurting. They come from all walks of life and have a special reason for trying to give back to their community. These are our volunteers, and they are the backbone of our ministry here at WARM.
God laid it on my heart as I looked at Westerville, and I understood that Westerville was a community of people who were trying to serve the poor and needy and those who are in need of extra support. I thought, where would Christ be in this community on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday? And as I talked with the Lord about it, He laid on my heart to come and approach WARM.
I went to retire late in 2019, and WARM was one of the places that first came to mind of how do I prayerfully consider where I give back in the community. I would come in a couple of mornings a week to volunteer, and I really felt like I had found the great place for me to volunteer. I saw the good work that they did. So you knew the resources that you provided really were helping to provide good things to the community. And in March, the world went a little haywire, things shut down, but it was so important that WARM continued their operation. But what we also know is the size of the population that could and should be served in Westerville is much greater than we currently serve today.
Because when you do drive down Westerville streets, it does seem like, oh, it's like Happyville, not much need until you do go into the schools and you see where the need is. And that was an eye-opener for my kids as well, taking them on the food program in the summer because they went to some of the apartment buildings and were with the kids there.
We came in contact with WARM through the lunch program that was over the summer, and I came to the United States in March, and my mom arrived a couple years before that. And so basically my mom didn't have a job, especially coming from a different country, degree from a different country as well. I stumbled upon the lunch program because we lived nearby the Yuba Village Park, and we really enjoyed it, and we loved the activities. We met new people. My mom's still in contact with some of the people that we've met there.
Yeah. I think for some of our younger volunteers, they don't realize some of the needs that actually are in Westerville and that are right beside of them. And they don't realize that potentially the student that's in the locker next to them have some real needs.
It's definitely made me more empathetic because before I got to WARM, I kind of had one way of viewing the world that was kind of more like I'm living in a bubble kind of way. Ever since working at WARM, I've got a more broader understanding of the world.
It was just a natural thing, like a full circle, that we received help when we really needed it. And now that my family is more financially stable, they both have jobs that can support now a family of 5, we can give back and help clients and other people that really need the help, just like how WARM helped us.
So when they come here and they see what we do, or they're able to experience Share a Backpack, which is weekend food programs, they really take to heart, because I believe that they are a group of people that want to give back and don't always know how to. And you can just tell it's so heartfelt that it is something that they would want to be involved in now that they have the opportunity to understand it.
These volunteers are just so special. I started volunteering in 2015, so I'm in my 6th year. And what happened when COVID came, we had to change. We had to go to a new system to protect our clients, so we all kind of had to coordinate how to bring the clients in, how to box up the food. In the pre-COVID days here at WARM, our clients who had appointments would come here to the reception area to check in, to let the client service people know that they are here and ready to be taken out into the pantry. Before COVID, I actually helped in the market area, the Choice Market area. I helped the clients shop, and the Choice Pantry was full of fruits, vegetables, meat, canned goods. We had bread, pastries, condiments, and then down here we would have the toiletries and even a bonus section. We then, when the pandemic hit, we had to put a standard assortment of food together. So what we did was we put a small package together for small families and a large package for big families. This was all drive-in. We actually asked them not to get out of their cars. We wanted to protect them as much as possible because we were interacting with a lot of people. I mean, early in the pandemic, we didn't understand what was going on.
And the team turned on a dime to change how we served clients.
In Choice Market online, what we have is our clients can go online, they can go on and order whatever they want by various categories. I believe there's 8 categories, and there's so many points in each category, and they spend their points and they fill their basket.
I think it's that people will find a way to give back in their hearts. And I think from a prayerful standpoint, people do pray and ask for the opportunities. And I personally have asked for God's guidance so many times in more than the past year of how should I spend my time? How can I engage more? What's the path that He really wants me to take? And when I talk to those around us and I see the people here at WARM, I know they're doing the same thing. And it's why they're here, it's why they come and donate, and it's why they ask how much more they can do.
I believe deeply in the power of prayer. That's part of the reason I volunteered at WARM. So I've actually strengthened my relationship through God while working at WARM. Just because I could feel the spiritual energy in the building. Before a shift, we usually gather around. Usually the eldest member will say a prayer, and then we'll go off on our work.
Father, thank you for for this beautiful day outside, for the warm sunshine. Thank you for
We recognize God in everything we do, and the people do that too. And when you have people that have very strong value systems that want to really step up and help and get involved and make a difference in clients' hands, that's very important.
With everyone who comes in. We ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen. God bless Warren.
So there's always prayer and spiritual energy throughout this place, which I really enjoy.
It may come as a surprise to you that WARM is more than just a food bank. Westerville Area Resource Ministry is just that, a resource that goes well beyond feeding the body. You've heard the proverbial quote that if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And while WARM is blessed to feed the hungry, Way to Work is a unique program that trains people to give themselves a hand up.
I found out about WARM through a colleague. Just one conversation, we talked about some of the things that were out there, and she mentioned WARM. And then once I went through the restructure with my organization that I was with for almost 19 years, coming out of it, I really didn't know where to start.
Spent the past 21 years at an adult daycare facility, and because we serve the probably the most vulnerable population to COVID, being elderly, disabled individuals, our services were quickly suspended. I attend Westerville Christian Church, and our pastor sent out an email saying, hey, if people are looking for kind of a, how to get back to work, a job placement kind of a program, contact WARM. I looked at that email and said, I need to do something about this. So I sent an email, and David Crago responded almost immediately to ask what my needs were. Could we sit down and have a conversation?
So I came in and I talked to David. This was probably early December 2019. Well, fast forward to 2020 and everybody knows COVID happened, and so things kind of went to a standstill. But I will tell you, David was always emailing me, checking up on me.
And then it was like, okay, well, send me your resume. Oh, okay, no problem.
It was really, really gut-wrenching for me to do it, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know if this is the right wording or how I should word this, and so it was very painful for me.
We would set an appointment for once a week. So there was a continual or a repetitiveness of, you need to see this every week. You need to be working on this every week. There was accountability in that, because I needed to do my homework in order to come back. It made me take the time to sit down and really look at the skill set that I had developed.
Well, one, I hadn't interviewed in a long time. I was like, well, I have the skill set, I have the experience, I've been with a company long term. That has to be beneficial.
We probably had at least 3 or 4 mock interviews.
Gave me some talking points, really kind of made me feel at ease when I was interviewing.
When it comes time to talk about myself, I was a more, I can show you better than I can tell you kind of person. But you don't get that opportunity when it comes to looking for jobs. You have to sell yourself, and I was not good at that.
That was so crucial to, how well I performed or how well I interviewed, and they provided me with that one-on-one service.
Just kind of what to do, how to kind of build your interview, how to prepare for your interview.
Dan and I would have long conversations. He would prep me before the interview, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna ask you this question. And he'd ask me the question, and I would answer it. He's like, okay, I like that answer, but why don't you add this? And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Why didn't I think of that?
It gave me a sense of, I could do it. I could find and land a very good job that fit my skill set.
Stressed out doesn't even cover it, but God has never failed in providing for me. So God, I don't know what your plan is for me, is what I'm saying, but whatever it is, people are praying for me all around. Friends, family, church, just praying.
I'm just so grateful that I was able to find that resource, because it really allowed me to help navigate and really pivot my career decision.
I get a phone call from the full-time position. We want to hire you. I'm sorry, what? We want to hire you. When? When do you want me to start? Every time David celebrated with me, the fact that it's so tangible, the fact that especially during this time, it's free. It is a free service. All you have to do is give a little bit of your time for them to help you be in a better position. It's free. It costs you nothing but time. What else could you ask for? What else could you ask for?
When I got the job offer, I called him, or I texted him, and I expressed that, hey, I have this job offer. He's like, okay, I'll call you in 20 minutes. Are you available? And he talked me through. And it was just, in 2020, 2021, to have that experience, it's priceless.
Many of our neighbors suffered through trials and tribulations even before COVID. This year, we saw that hard times can happen to anybody. And through no fault of their own, many saw the world crash down on them personally, financially, and even spiritually. And for most, asking for help is not something that comes very easy.
Really, the ministry of WARM is a culmination of many Christians around the Westerville area who are praying on a daily, a weekly, even a corporate basis in their churches that God would move to meet the needs of those who are in need and come to WARM.
I had had a separation. My husband had left, and he left me with a house to be in where he paid for the house, but I didn't have any income. He had moved all of our income and left me with $3 in our joint account. I was not yet back to work. I was recovering from an ankle injury, and that led me to obviously go for Medicaid, which I did, and I did get $128, I think, for food a month from them. So being in need and being on Medicaid and never having been in that position in my life, it was very embarrassing. I felt like I looked like I was not in need. I had a car. I had jewelry that I had had before everything, and I felt uncomfortable when I was meeting.
A client may understand that they need help in a certain area of their life. And as God begins to work through the ministering hearts here and hands of the volunteers and the staff, there becomes a greater realization of just how much help is available and how much help God is willing to give.
It was almost like a counseling session in a way. We went through some finances. We went through my attempts to get a job. I had just gotten a part-time job at a retail store. They took my resume and they buffed it up. They helped me build my resume to where it was better and more professional. By doing that, and it's gonna sound funny, I was able to eventually get a job at Kroger's in their click list, which was tremendous ankle rehab. And at the same time, I'm getting some pay. It wasn't what I was used to, but it was some pay. And at that time, then I had my phone was disconnected, which they did offer also to find someone who could get me a phone.
One of the first things that God did when He created man was created mankind to work. This was part of man's identity. And when a person loses their job, when they come against a hard time, maybe reduction of hours or benefits, there does begin to be an insecurity about their own identity. Bringing someone the opportunity to have employment isn't just about putting food on their table and lights in their apartment. It's providing for them an opportunity to, in a sense, have dignity and worth and value, because we've been created as workers from God Himself.
I was active. I was working at Kroger's 4 days a week. I was working my therapy job 3 days a week, and I felt useful to the world again. It gave me the opportunity to get back and be useful, and that's something that's much needed for my personality. So I think when that happened, I started to feel like a person again, like a real person.
I like what WARM has used in the past, a hand up, not a hand out. And so Every part of every person is in desperate need of God's help and God's grace.
Prayer has always been a part of my life, and it had been pre-COVID even. I have to admit, when everything fell apart for me with the separation, I was crushed and I fell away, not from God, but I fell away from my normal habits of prayer, and I didn't attend church for a while, and then I just felt that people were praying for me. I know my family was praying for me. I know my sister's church in Springfield was praying for me, and the world did start to open up. And I feel like I don't think God causes things to happen to us or that God does things to us, but I feel like He knew at that time that I needed to be stripped down so that I could be built back up. And that's what happened in every way, including spirituality.
God designs burdens that are bigger than us on purpose because they're not bigger than Him, and they're meant to be placed on Him.
What I love to do, and I know a lot of others here at Warm Volunteers love to do, is to pray with people. And as we hear someone's struggles and we're able to empathize with where they are, and then just joining hands with them or putting an arm around them and just being able to speak life into their situation through prayer, it's so powerful. Because often when you're going through something, it's all internal. You don't even know how to express how you're feeling, the pain, the hurt. Sometimes totally mentally, you don't want to admit it. And saying it out loud would be just traumatic. When I'm in my pain, all I can see is the circumstance. And I feel like the one thing the power of prayer does is it helps us be able to grab a hold of all the promises that are in the Bible that the Lord didn't just give for those in the past, they're for us today, right now. And Warm allows us to remind our clients that Jesus cares for them.
As that happened, I did start to fall back into my normal prayer. It wasn't based around COVID. It was based around the turnaround that I had in my life with everything. And, God has blessed me beyond belief within the last year. Being able to get my own place, being able to settle in and having what I consider a normal life.
In John 6, Jesus says He is the bread of life. And isn't that what every heart needs to know? And in Matthew 6 says that it is right to petition the Father for our daily bread. Warm is our local, hometown answer to prayer, and by striving to be the hands and feet of Christ. On behalf of the Warm staff and volunteers, we thank you for taking the time today to recognize the importance of prayer in our daily lives, prayer for those who live in our community, and we ask for your continued support for the work of Warm. As we close, we invite you to join us on this National Day of Prayer by leaving a comment or a prayer request. And in doing so, we continue to lift each other up as a community in a celebration of answered prayers.